Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and you are watching the Crystal Petry Podcast. Since January 2025, we have been covering President Donald Trump's first 100 days in office, and we're still under that 100-day umbrella. And here to help us decipher and understand what President Trump has been up to lately, we have Elise Wade, Executive Vice President of Young Democrats of Georgia. So welcome back to the podcast, Elise.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. I'm so glad to speak to this subject. There's been a lot going on, so I'm ready to break it down.
It has been so much going on, and that's why we do this, do it weekly, just so people can keep up. So obviously the first thing I'm talking about today, or the first thing we're talking about today, are the tariffs. What do you think is the goal of President Trump in applying these tariffs to other countries?
Absolutely. I think that the President Trump is trying to do a show of strength, but not necessarily realizing some of the real world implications of what tariffs do, how they can directly impact their economy, and sort of what we're seeing happen now with the stock market going the way it's going, with folks being a little bit scared, with this turning into a little bit more of a bear market, as well as our international relations with other countries. The U.S. is I believe we are the largest importer in the world. So by increasing tariffs, it's really it's not only messing with our pockets, but also messing with our international relations with other countries.
How do you think, if any, Elise, these tariffs have impacted Black-owned import-export businesses?
I think that, with businesses across the board, but particularly with Black-owned businesses, we are seeing, it's hitting our pockets directly. It's hitting our consumers directly. So we're seeing folks that, especially in the wake of like the Target boycotts and things like that, wanting to shop with Black businesses, with smaller businesses, with local businesses. Unfortunately, they don't have the capital to sort of take on more of this term to take on and make up for loss of profits, loss of people shopping, things like that. And the tariffs are really, really hurting them. They're directly impacting those businesses negatively.
Do you think, staying on that same topic of, loss of shopping, loss of revenue, that there will be a loss of jobs because of these tariffs?
So I do foresee, I see one of two things happening, right? Historically, tariffs have been used to sort of push and drive for things to be produced domestically, right? Right now, we don't have that sort of economy. That this was something that we had maybe about 100 years ago. But again, that was the original goal of tariffs, is to bring back that America-made product. Now, I will say that there's a lot of context here, right? We saw last year and even earlier this year with everything happening with our union struggles. I know President Joe Biden was the first president to stand in line with unions, and that was a huge win. But we're looking and seeing, the goal of making things American made. Does the U.S. necessarily have the infrastructure to do that, right? Is it this great idea, but without having the infrastructure to do that, is it going to just hurt us more than it will help us, and create further isolationism? So that's one area that I see. Another area that I see is automating jobs that a lot earlier that may not have been automated, just to try to save a few bucks, to try to save money. So for example, whereas there were previously may have been a logistics or a coordinator role, maybe that job now goes to AI just to save money, to help bridge some of those gaps and make ends meet for the businesses that are now losing money due to folks shopping less or buying less quantities of what they may have done before. So those are the two realms that I could see it going. I do know that the idea of bringing certain necessities, for example, the semiconductor chips that we see in our phones, our cars, all of that was brought back with the CHIPS Act back in 2021. So there have already been strides like this, but nothing like what we've seen with the tariffs. And I'm just bracing tight for the impact.
I think a lot of people are doing the exact same thing. At least they are bracing for impact. Let's talk about the middle class and how this can and possibly will affect the middle class. So the numbers are not exact, so please don't quote me on this. But I know there's over 5 million companies in the United States, whether that's small, medium, large. 2,100 of those companies have 500 employees or more, which is a very minuscule amount. The people that will be most affected by the tariffs are the middle class, the small to medium entrepreneurs and businesses. But according to the numbers, at least, the majority of those people actually voted for Donald Trump to be president. How are the impacts of the tariffs going to affect the middle class families and those small to medium jobs?
Yeah, so I have a few there's a lot to unpack in that. Number one is when we say middle class, I want to be very specific at who we're talking about. If someone makes under $200,000 a year, they are considered middle class. Now, the reason I want to be very clear on that is a lot of folks hear middle class and they don't want to consider themselves part of the middle class, right? So that's a big issue when we say, hey, who is this affecting? Oh, it's not me. Yes, it is, right?
It is.
So that I want to say that as well. And when we go into the voters, folks that voted for Trump, I want to say they didn't necessarily know what they were getting into a lot of the time. So when we're looking at these jobs, for these middle class jobs that are being directly impacted, it's going to lead to automation, right? It's going to lead to a lot of folks being cut off, laid off. It's also we're going to see even more now where the profits of companies are not necessarily keeping up with the increase of salaries of workers. So causing some tension there. But then also as it comes to creating new jobs, I do think that it will hinder some of that innovation, right? Where folks are going to be a little more weary before stepping out, before trying to find a new role, given the economic circumstances that we're seeing now.
And one of the things that I was thinking, at least before I go into my next question, is the middle class businesses. Okay, so we have these tariffs, right? We already know that tariffs is going to increase everything over here in the United States. Well, I'm not going to say everything because I'm not going to use an absolute, but a lot of things over here in the United States. I don't believe that these small businesses, these middle class businesses, will be able to increase their prices on their products, services, and goods and still remain viable.
Mm-hmm. So that is very true. And it's similar to what we saw in the 2008 recession, right? In the 2008 crash, a lot of these smaller businesses, they ended up having to sell to larger companies that have that capital. That can borrow against, some of their assets, and maybe they're not necessarily even purchasing. Maybe they're just, taking out a loan to purchase the company, right? So I will anticipate a lot of consolidation of smaller businesses, a lot of businesses that are bought and owned by a larger corporate, but maybe they'll still operate under the same name. So I see a lot of that coming when we look in terms of manufacturing, when we look in terms of who owns what in terms of products. There are about 6 major corporations that own almost everything that we see on the shelves of grocery stores, right? So I anticipate more of that happening, right? Where these corporations are still going and buying smaller businesses, letting them keep their branding, but it's no longer a small business per se.
Right, absolutely. Okay, what industries do you think, or maybe have you seen, that's been hit the hardest with these tariffs? Meaning they've had to maybe lay off employees, they've had to downsize, they've had to close. What industries have you seen, or do you think will be hit the hardest by this?
I truly anticipate that we will see a lot of layoffs in the big, like the automobile manufacturing. I anticipate a lot of real estate, like layoffs and sort of the back ends with that with real estate agents, but then also agriculture. I'm in Georgia. Agriculture is our number one industry, and it goes both ways, right, in terms of importing and exporting. So I really anticipate that the tariffs and then the reciprocal tariffs are just gonna. I mean, there is not a single industry that won't be affected. Off of the top of mind, I know that, like I said, the U.S. is one of the largest consumers of goods in the world, right? So we're seeing technology, that's textiles, clothing, food, of course, most of our most of our innovation we outsource to other countries. So there will be a large gap from what I'm anticipating, just so much impacted.
Do you think that there is anything that African Americans and other people of color, marginalized communities can do to brace for what's coming with these tariffs and the reciprocal tariffs?
Absolutely. So, one, save your coins. Two,
Okay.
buy Black. Continue to, if you're boycotting, continue to do that. Three, also look for other methods, maybe joining a mutual aid group, a co-op group, folks that you can barter with. So an example that I'm actually doing today, I'm getting my hair done. I have a friend that's doing my hair, and in return, I'm gonna help her with her taxes. So things like that, to
Wow.
where we can now barter instead of exchanging money. But then I will also say just a little bit of hope for our community. Usually when it comes to recessions and depressions, the Black community is the least affected, just because statistically we own less than half of 1% of all of the wealth. So this is a great opportunity for us to get ahead, right? If we're doing what we need to do, saving our coins. That's how I hope that all of our Black folks look at this. This is an opportunity for us to get ahead. This is an opportunity for you to, if maybe you've never owned a house before, when the market crashes, this could be a chance for you to own a house. This could be a chance for you to do and move yourself forward and move yourselves ahead.
I have not thought about it like that. I have
Oh yeah.
not thought about it like that, and I love it. Yes, you are
Mhm.
absolutely correct. Oh my goodness, Elise. Yes.
And it sucks that it's in a time like this where we're
Yes.
having to really, count our coins, make sure that we're being mindful of our spending, of who we're shopping with. But at the end result of this, hope for my community, I hope that it's really just us gaining more wealth overall. I hope that, we come out unscathed, but then also we use this as an opportunity to build our economic voice, right? To build our political voice, to really show, hey, similar with what's happening with and I keep going back to the Target boycotts, because I was an avid Target girly. I went pretty much every single day, and I haven't not been at all since January. But speaking with our dollars, right? This is a beautiful opportunity to speak with our dollars, to let folks know that we're not going to continue to stand for this, and to let folks know, like, we don't have to necessarily rely on someone else. We can build our own communities right here at home.
Absolutely. Elise Wade joining us, everyone, Executive Vice President of Young Democrats of Georgia. So your Democratic Senator Cory Booker was all over the news last week for making history of having a 24-hour and some change conversation. He's not calling it a filibuster, but he spoke for 25 hours straight and some change, which is now in the history books for the longest speech given. What are your thoughts about what he did?
Number one, just being in awe. Being in awe, not only not calling it a filibuster, but calling it a conversation, and just being so ultimately moved by everything that man spoke about. I have not finished all 25 hours. I'm at about hour 20 because I decided to go back and truly rewatch and take in everything that he's saying. I mean, it is moving when we think about someone that prepared for this, fasted, stopped drinking water so that he didn't have to go to the bathroom, so that he did not have to give up a platform on such an amazing, amazing moment. And then also when you think about how it happened, right? Previously, the longest filibuster was from
Strom.
Strom Thurmond.
Yes.
And it was in contest of the Civil Rights Act, right?
Absolutely.
So this was a racist filibuster, and that was a Democrat at the time, right? So it is important to know, like, someone delivering a speech that has just been filled with such love, such hope, such admiration, such, don't be like them. Don't, just unify. It gives me chills just thinking about it. And every time I turn it back on, just chills. So such a huge win, such a huge win.
Do you feel like anything tangible was accomplished by his 25-hour and some change conversation?
In the Senate, you can do this in your own legislature. You can do this in your own city council. You can do this in your own county commissioner, in your own county commissioner's meeting. So that would probably be the second thing. And then number three, I mean, just overall, lending out an olive branch. I am huge on olive branches. And I think that sitting down and having a conversation that is not pointing fingers, that is not saying you are bad, you are mean, you are evil, but saying, hey, that is bad, that is evil, don't be like that, is exactly what I think a lot of folks need. A lot of folks wanted. It resonated with a lot of people, no matter what side of the aisle you are on, because when someone is speaking to you as a human, it just hits different. So there's a lot of tangibles. And then he was dropping knowledge. He was speaking some truth like I've never heard before come out that well. So just I absolutely in awe, absolutely thrilled.
Do you feel like the Republican Party was affected at all with his conversation, the things that he said? Did we see a drop in popularity or anything like that because of Democrat Senator Cory Booker's speech?
So I have not kept up with the polling. I cannot tell you that definitively, but I can tell you some anecdotes about just from what I've seen in the past, in the time since that's happened. And I want to give a little more context, right? This is coming at the time where the country, Republican Congress folks they're refusing to show up to town halls. There are empty town halls across the country. So I know in Georgia, this has happened, California, Colorado, all throughout the US, Republicans are refusing to show up to talk to their constituents. So to have a Democrat senator stand for 25 hours and speak from the heart, it really just goes to show the drastic differences between certain folks that we elect. I think that this has effectively put a lot of people on notice. I know in Georgia in particular, one of our Republican congressmen, he showed up and ended up walking out of his town hall. So when you compare that directly to hey, well, there is this guy named Cory Booker that is going to stand there and listen and yield for questions or talk about, talk that talk. I think that it's very impactful, and it's showing folks again, hey, we can disagree on certain items, but not showing up is unacceptable. And I think that will be the precipice for moving forward. Showing up is the bare minimum. And a lot of folks aren't doing that right now.
Now, Elise, you stated that you've watched at least 20 hours of his 25-hour and some change speech. What issues surrounding civil rights did he speak about that really jumped out at you and that really resonated with you?
Oh my goodness. The biggest thing that I would say is just the amount of unity that he was going through, the amount of unity that he was preaching for, and not necessarily going with a red or a blue, a Democrat or Republican, but just saying us as Americans, us as people, us that, the land of the free because of the brave, and really just unifying. I think that is the biggest thing, letting people know it is okay. Folks can live their own lives, and that's okay. And that level of independence, that level of freedom is what we need in our country. It's what our country was founded on. So that by a long shot just overshot everything else. Just the preaching of unity, the teaching of unity. My parents are military, mom, dad, stepmom, stepdad, cousins, everybody military, over 120 years of service. Wow. So preaching unity is something that I grew up hearing, and it felt like a hug hearing it come from Senator Booker's mouth.
Absolutely. Do you think what Senator Booker said, obviously it has deeply resonated with you. Do you feel like it is going to help mobilize people to get out and vote, to get out and be educated about the names on the ballot, the laws and things like that?
I definitely think that this will motivate people to get out and fight, and not just sort of lay down and go without a fight. And I think that also, given everything that's been happening, I know we briefly touched on the tariffs, but there is so much that's happened within this first 100 days that has folks scared, that has folks, unsure, uncertain. And I think that this is sort of the beginning precipice of saying, you know what, no, we're not going to sit here and take that. We are going to do our research. We are going to run for office. I know that he did inspire one of my friends to run for office in Atlanta. So I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
That's amazing. Okay, so my last question on this topic, then we'll get to our final subject. Do you think Cory Booker is the next 2028 Democratic presidential nominee? You know it's coming. You know it's coming.
Oh my goodness. So I love Cory Booker. I don't know. I am very big on letting folks fight it out. May the best person win. So I hope that he is at the very least on my ballot so I can vote for him in the primary. So, you know, I'm going to keep my eyes open. And I've been following Senator Booker for a while. There's actually a great documentary called Street Fight. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it covers his first race with city council, right?
What streaming platform is it on?
I think it's on Prime Video, and I also think it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's called
I'll have to check that out.
Check it out. And just seeing how much of a fighter he was then against injustice, I know that it's authentic. And I just hope to see him on my primary ballot. I really hope so. Just know, Senator Booker, if you're watching this, you've got a signature in Georgia to get you on that.
Absolutely. Okay, so our final topic is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., JFK. He has been on a tour, if you will, that he has dubbed Make America Healthy Again. The latest venture that he's going up against is fluoride in our drinking water. What are your thoughts behind his tour, Make America Healthy Again, and him wanting to get rid of fluoride in the drinking water?
You know, I love the concept. Make America Healthy Again. Great concept. The execution, however, I don't particularly love. So regarding this tour, I do think that this is a way to sort of play on and pick up more conspiracy theories and push them. I think that this should be something that is an individual idea. You know, if you don't want fluoride in your drinking water, you should filter it out. But saying no one can have it, it's a little insane. And I also believe that, you know, for me, this is the wrong focus. There have been so many reports coming out about microplastics in water, about lead pipes in Georgia, about, you know, Flint still not having clean water. So tackling fluoride is a bit misguided, in my opinion. Now, I will say, this is also, I want to acknowledge that this also comes from a little bit of a point of privilege. I don't know Robert F. Kennedy personally, but just from hearing this, I have a lot of friends that grew up in South Georgia, Valdosta, in Moultrie, in Cockrell County, all over South Georgia that did not have fluoride in their tap water. And because of that, it has impacted their teeth. It's impacted, like I have friends that have false teeth because their teeth don't have any minerals and they lost their teeth. And, you know, a 26-year-old needing a full set of new teeth, it's a direct impact, right? So I think that folks need to be able to make that decision on their own, truly. I don't think that that's something that you can decide for a nation of 350 million people, right? Particularly when there are places that don't have any water access. There are folks that have microplastics in their water. There are places where there's sewage spilling out into water. So I think that this is a little misguided.
Absolutely. Have you heard or seen any information coming from the medical community as far as dentists and what their thoughts and feelings are with his getting rid of the fluoride in our drinking water?
So just from what I've been reading, it is, I'd say probably about 99% of the folks that I've been reading and of the actual published scholarly sources that I've seen that are against getting fluoride out of our water. They say leave it in. It was put in for a reason. There are some that cite that it can interrupt hormones, that it can interrupt the pineal gland. But again, that is a small majority. So just for fairness, there are some folks that have concerns about that, particularly if folks have thyroid issues. And of course, this is for folks that have certain pre-existing condition like thyroid issues, endocrine issues, and hormonal imbalances already, or they're taking medication for that. There is concern there for those particular folks. However, for the vast majority of folks, for the majority of dentists, they're saying that it's not going to hurt anyone. So I support science.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as we get ready to say goodbye on this podcast, Elise, President Trump has been in office a little bit under 100 days. It'll be 100 days on April 29th, I believe. Has he done anything that you have said to yourself, that's a good idea?
In all fairness, I'm sure that there is something that I can find to agree with. I just haven't found it yet. So I will look, and next time I come around, I will have a better answer to that question. But just as far as, you know, the world that we're living in as a broad outlook, it really is just a matter of the voice of the people, right? There's
right.
Trump, the administration, everything that's happening, and they're on a pace to get that done as fast as possible. Project 2025, I'm going to call it a spade. That's what it is. And then on our end, there's folks that are against everything that's doing. So right now we're in this sort of race to outpace the implementation of these things.
Right.
So I just want to say, not only for me, but for everyone, you know, of course, keep an eye out for things that you may agree with, but for the things that you don't shut up about it. Organize about it. Tell your friends, tell your family, because we are in a race. We're in a true race. We've seen him directly ignoring court orders. We've seen U.S. citizens being deported. We've seen the erasure and pretty much us getting rid of due process, and folks not understanding the implications of that, of how important it is to have due process. We've seen they're challenging a Supreme Court race in North Carolina. We've seen all kinds of stuff. Firing of federal workers, the CDC basically being shut down. There is so much happening. So we just have to outpace the Trump administration. We don't have to necessarily beat them right now. We just have to outpace them with our organizing. We have to outpace them with our voices.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Elise, for coming on the podcast again and breaking down and helping us understand what President Trump is doing, which is a lot. He has done a lot, and we haven't even hit the 100 days yet. We haven't even hit. So he has done a lot, but thank you for coming on and explaining what he's done thus far.
Absolutely. And I'll leave you with this. The last thing I'll say, I have a joke with a few of my friends saying he does the most and the least at the same time. He does too much and not enough at the same time.
That is so good. I'm here for it. Absolutely. To my audience and to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to my podcast because, as I stated before, we are covering President Donald Trump's first 100 days. And in order to keep up and understand what's going on, you have to be tuned in to the Crystal Petry Podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Again, thank you so much, Elise. And you can get Elise's podcast on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.